Awesome, awesome. For those of you guys tuning into the recording, welcome. Appreciate you guys being on here. We're going to start off as always with tapping into the previous week, what we were really looking for the higher time frame overview, what played out, what didn't, what could we have seen to, really change up the analysis and stuff. But honestly, last week, with what we spoke about, we were pretty spot on with what we were looking for, right? So firstly, we spoke about dollar. Right. Obviously, our hypothesis right now is that we're in a potential higher time frame accumulation at the moment, right? We recently had, price start to really distribute after taking out the UT of the potential accumulation that we're looking at. And so really our idea was to go ahead and see the market reach towards this low here, right? The low of the previous distribution, and then see if we can't go ahead and reaccumulate, later on, right? So really our first move of the week was to see the market come lower. We spoke about a couple of different pairs that we can see how that happen with. But essentially here, as we can see in live markets, that is exactly what ended up happening. The market opened after Wyckoff Sundays, right? We had a nice push to the upside here, reaching up towards the highs. Obviously, our most ideal scenario was to see this gap get filled, right? But obviously, we said that actually it would actually be better if it didn't get filled for the longs later on, because now we can really attack these highs with a lot more confidence coming into the new week. So I think that honestly, this week we might be able to head up there, but we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, essentially the move was really to see us go to the downside and then see if we can accumulate down below these lows, right? Thankfully, a lot of the students out here managed to catch some beautiful moves this week from the dollar sells, which some of them we actually spoke about here on session, right? So both with currencies and with metals and stuff like that. So firstly, we spoke about Euro USD, right? We spoke about how the most likely scenario was that we were going to continue with the rally that we have been seeing, right? Which obviously, Euro USD rallies would be, dollar shorts, right? To go ahead and go down and touch towards the low of the previous distribution, right? And so, what ended up happening when market opened obviously was, we ended up pulling back into this red zone that you guys can see here to go ahead and go for a long, right? So we did have some students that went ahead and tapped into that, as we could see here. you know, uh, Pretty much market opened, right? We saw Euro USD go ahead and gap down, right? Head towards this extreme area. We can see like internal sweeps here, internal sweeps there, internal sweeps there, right? All with the one move. And then, I believe it was Alfie who went ahead and saw that, recognized that, and ended up going into a buy on Euro USD based off of that premise. And obviously that ended up being really, really nice. We also spoke about potential targets for Euro USD, which was right here, right? We were saying that we should really keep buying until we end up reaching these levels at least. So yeah, that target was pretty much perfectly hit, so essentially from the entry to the target last week, we really did, catch this on point. 8331.
I
We can
believe.
look like, price. I probably want to see at minimum, these levels here get
Yeah.
taken, right? At one point. Yeah, right there. That's what we spoke about. So go ahead and see at least that level get into it. And I mean, guys, look at the level right here, right? Price literally just reaches there right at the end of the week, last week, really, really beautifully, right? Before then actually seeing the rejection off of the level. So we spoke about these levels down here, and we even spoke about the target up top. So definitely a great opportunity on your USD this week, as well. Right. What other pairs did we speak on here? We spoke on, yeah, so that was our target there, right? We spoke on GU, did we? I don't think we did speak on GU we were saying like probably we're going to continue to go long, obviously, just like with everything else, but I think I didn't like it as much. Oh, I guess we spoke about sweeping this low there. GU here, we did not sweep that low, right? So we just barely, barely respected it. Looks like we basically made equal lows there, to be honest. Actually, I guess we did sweep it technically, right? We just barely got below actually both of these lows that are here, right? So technically, yeah, I guess we did sweep it there, with that, but very, very difficult to honestly catch. I didn't end up playing Euro USD. I mean, GBP USD, but same ideas with Euro USD, right? So that was GU there, right? So to see us sweep that low and then go long, I mean, to be honest, that kind of did happen spot on, right? Barely took the low and then we went long, from that point, right? So that was that, with GU. Then after that, we spoke about NU, I believe. Those were really the three main pairs I was looking at. So there was NZD USD. This one we also wanted to see us break below the low of the distribution here, right? So we drew this line right here. We said most likely scenarios, we actually sweep that out. I wanted to see us reach the imbalance. I don't believe that we did, right? I think it was just a quick sweep like we saw with all the other pairs. For our day trades, right? I do believe that's what we said there, right? So yeah, so with NU here, as we can see, right, following the open right after the Wyckoff Sundays, right? Because Wyckoff Sundays happens always before the market opens. We had price go ahead, sweep below those lows, didn't quite get into the imbalance, right? Ended up reacting off of this trap candle level here on the 1 hour, which makes sense as well. And then yeah, we had really nice order flow to really bring us up to the upside. So once again, seeing price come higher, and this was really our target that we were speaking on, that until we really saw these equal highs get hit, we wouldn't be looking for any shorts in the market, right? So we kind of called the counter trend trade, like I said, perfectly, to be honest. So yeah, those are really the currencies we spoke about. The other currency we spoke about was USDJPY. Right now it is looking a little bit more bearish than normal, but yeah, so we spoke about the potential shorts there on UJ. I don't know if we spoke about the specific zone. I guess we didn't. We'll see how this ends up playing out, not gonna lie, but I feel like maybe below these, would probably be best. So let's see here. USDJPY. Looks like we did reach to those levels, didn't we? That I was talking about, which was here, right? So yeah, so basically, I mean, we had students also catch this move here on UJ. Beautiful, beautiful trade here, right? So pretty much after we saw the market open, right? We had price pretty much gap up, get up towards these areas here. We can see that this is a previous distribution that we had marked up, right? And, market perfectly came into that level, right? Some people had their stops above here. Some people had their stops above the high, both of which are fine and both of which yielded a very, very nice potential risk to reward, which came all the way up to a 1 to 8 if you use the bigger stop loss, and a 1 to 30 or 1 to 20 if you used the smaller stop using like a type 3 setup. So I think we had like 4 or 5 students take this trade, which is awesome. I love to see that. Really having a bunch of people really having the same eyes again, looking at this position there. So yeah, just really awesome to see in general. I really do think that, UJ sells were probably the best setup of the week, just given the fact that we were inside of a, higher time frame zone, over here, right? And then coming back into that level and then seeing here on UJ that, we just barely, see manipulation above these highs right here, right? So we can see how the market, here just went and boomed it up towards the highs, right? Barely taking out this level essentially, right? It was almost equal really, but it did barely take out that level. And then people went ahead and I saw took entries in here and they took entries in here to go ahead and short the market to the downside after seeing that sweep. So just a really, really beautiful example. And again, that is exactly what we were looking for on Wyckoff Sundays, right? We wanted to see price get back into the distribution. And then from there, look for the sell-off to the downside to go ahead and attack. I believe it was these lows that I just said there. Let's see here for sure. So wait, so I feel like we'll see how this ends up playing out, not gonna lie. So wait, so UJ going down, yeah, okay. Yeah, because UJ's had a pretty significant pullback compared to actually the rest of these now that I really look at it. Which makes sense because UJ, because again, like we see this with NU, right? Barely really any pullback there. UJ had a decent pullback, so maybe this could be one of the better ones to use. 4 pushes down, right? If this does end up being a distribution, then maybe these lows down here can be targeted, but which is exactly what happened. So really, really nice analysis from last week, honestly. I mean, like with the dollar sales, we spoke about every single pair, we spoke about all the zones. I mean, that's why a lot of people did manage to, again, catch those levels too. Although some people really just did it on their own. But yeah, really, really cool to see how well that played out there on UJ, right? Now with the rest of them, right? What did we speak about next? We spoke about indices. Obviously, I think we were just talking about indices continuing to go long. It did look like price had switched up its complete structure, right? So kind of looking like this whole thing was a push down to then come back up. What we wanted was to see things like Nasdaq, for example, like reach into this gap that we have here on the daily time frame. And I believe it just barely tapped into it. Didn't really fill it, right? But it did tap into it here, right? So yeah, we spoke about price coming below this low here. I believe that was what we said. Right, let's double check here. Um, Okay, I guess I don't have the part there, but I know we did definitely say that we wanted to see price break below those lows. That's why I drew that line there. And again, price barely broke below these levels to go ahead and go long. So again, really really nice to see, but not really much of an opportunity to be honest. I definitely would have rather seen price fully fill that imbalance before then going on the rally, but damn, what a rally. What an absolute rally. Like crazy. We'll talk about what we could see happening this week coming up and maybe what we could see happening even when the market opens today. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and tap into the next section here, which was gold. We spoke about gold. We spoke about the potential for the way that this push to the upside happens, just be cautious about potential longs. I mean, this week, we did end up making like two more highs in gold, right? But again, like, we'll speak about what we could see happen this week. But yeah, I mean, realistically, overall, we really did hold market structure very well. So there's really like it's a little bit less reason to short. But again, I am just noticing these highs are not really showing me strength as much, right? We're getting just like we mentioned last week, this is like one big push up, right? Same thing over here. When we broke the high, we had a fast push up, and then same thing here, right? We're having a fast push up. So I'm wondering if this could be a distribution coming into it. But yeah, in the end, obviously, markets ended up rallying to the upside, right? So yeah, we did speak about the potential for that to all happen, right? And maybe we end up again, things like this is kind of what we spoke about. If we could even long from here, right? But price did long, from that level as well, right? And then yeah, same thing with silver, right? But silver looked a lot better. And then the last thing we spoke about was BTC. We spoke about the potential for this to be a distribution. That distribution just ended up turning into a reaccumulation, and we are now at new highs on BTC. So yeah, really, really nice to see. I mean, again, we were kind of, worried about the potential to see BTC, maybe reverse because of this high here. And, now we have a new high in the market, right? We have relatively equal highs as well here that are at 80K. So personally, I think this makes more sense to just follow market structure and continue to bring long, but we'll see what happens there later on. But yeah, we were basically looking at this distribution last week. That happened, right? We had the volume divergence inside of that. But we did say though that we would want to long if price came below these lows. It's just price never quite got below, right? Pretty much just made equal lows and then came up. So wasn't really much of an opportunity for me to long. I didn't short it either. So yeah, I just kind of left it because again, like that rally that we had was really impulsive. There wasn't really much there wasn't really much reason to short here or short there, right? Like there was really just like holding structure super well, right? But um, but yeah, there's that. Cool, cool, cool. Now next thing we're going to go into is going to be the week, right? I don't think we spoke about anything else, right? BTC was the last thing, right? Cool, cool, cool. All right, so let's start off with the new week now. Okay. Last week was great, right? Shout out to everybody who really managed to take the information from Wyckoff Sundays last week and make some good analysis for yourself. Before we go into it, we're first going to kind of talk about things from a fundamental perspective. Obviously, in terms of what's been going on in general. So obviously, the major market talks right now are about the war, right? On Friday, we had news that the Strait of Hormuz was being opened, and that we were going to see essentially like probably the next stage of like the ceasefire and stuff, right? So for the remainder of the ceasefire, they said they were going to leave it open on Friday, and then the market kind of reacted to that. Oil dumped, gold pumped, and then after that, basically as soon as the market closed again, we ended up seeing Iran obviously announce that, oh, never mind, the strait is going to be closed. And so the strait was closed again. And, obviously that happened on Saturday. So since that happened on Saturday, we haven't really had any live market updates, from that. Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. I agree with you there, Steve. I actually went into oil buys as well, right before market closed. And then I closed them before the market closed, right? So I think after I did my gold buys, I went into oil buys. And then right after that, I closed them basically, and then just ended up just catching a tiny piece of the move, but it ended up continuing to go up, right? So it does kind of give us a sign that maybe that could end up being the narrative here now. We can actually look at something here together. Weekendprices.com. I believe that's the website. Oh, it's not. Weekendprice.com. Oh, sorry, one sec. There we go. So yeah, so obviously here we can kind of track like what's really happened over the weekend. I was kind of taking a look at this as well. So obviously, firstly, we can see with Nasdaq, most likely we are going to see a gap to the downside, right? This kind of lets you keep up with the prices, right? So here on Friday, we had the market close, right? And then, we've really been seeing this bearish structure really happening ever since. Didn't drop too much, didn't drop too crazy, but definitely seeing a little bit of a pullback there. S&P 500, same idea, right? Again, just recently having price coming above highs and coming lower. I mean, this is pretty bearish structure to potentially do a pullback or, maybe we do one more high. We'll see how it all goes. But, again, Friday closed up here, so we are going to see a gap down as well, most likely on indices, right? And then we have oil, right? Oil is most likely going to see a gap up, right? We can see that Friday close right here. I was like buying down here. I closed it like somewhere here, and then price obviously continued to rally. And so now this is where we are now. So most likely we will be getting a complete engulfment of that huge sell-off that happened, last at the end of last week when they announced that the Strait was going to be opened, and then it ended up just booming all the way back up now. So now we're back at 88. So we'll talk more about oil later on as well, and what we can see. Gold as well. Gold has ended up seeing a bit of a tumble, right? So as we can see that push to the upside there, that happened, right? We started to sell off, market closed, and we just ended up continuing. So most likely we'll be seeing a gap down. And it does kind of look like this push to the upside might have been manipulation, to go ahead and really see the sell-off happen. So, it might be that again, like a bunch of people buy, right? Like they hear the news, they start buying, gold, they start selling oil, they start doing all this. But that, I think is really just going to be manipulation at the end of the day. Like I keep saying, guys, I really don't think this is something that is going to be solved quickly at all. This whole conflict between Iran and the States. I think it really comes down to who's going to be who's going to last the longest. I think that's what this game is going to be, right? Between them. And so, I don't think that this ends anytime soon is really all I'm saying. So, yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see how the market opens, now, but yeah, gold and silver, both of them are looking quite bearish there, off of the, weekend, closing. So yeah. So that's really again just kind of an update on the news, and then also Forex Factory. We'll tap into what we got going on this week. Looks like we got red folders on Monday for Canadian dollar, which is going to be about CPI, right? We have core retail sales for the USD. Federal chair designates Warsh testifies. All right. CPI for GBP. Okay, GBP as well, Euro, so nothing really on Thursday. So yeah, really, I guess the biggest USD news is going to be the core retail sales on Tuesday. There really isn't much else news that's going to be happening here. So yeah, unfortunately, again, I like to have big news events in the middle and at the end of the week, but it looks like for now, it's at the beginning of the week. So definitely, going to be interesting to see, like I said, how everything does play out, and hopefully we can again end up catching some nice volatility, right? To again give us some of the entries on some of these things that we're looking for. Because personally, I think I personally think I want to align myself. I personally think that I want to like align myself with the news, right? So really, just like in terms of again what we just spoke about, like with oil and stuff like that. Just seeing the potential for, this to, continue to buy up and, head towards the previous highs and stuff. Because again, I think that with what happened over the weekend with the Strait being closed again and it just kind of being like a big like flip-flop between, the war, going better for the States. And then after that, Iran being like, oh, nope, we're actually going to close everything again. So gold selling off like crazy over the weekend using this and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of crazy, in terms of how the whole thing really played out. It's just such a testament to the way that manipulation really happens and how the majority of people are, really manipulated to think one way or another about, like a certain thing or a certain news event. Like, people get really excited and they hear all this stuff. But at the end of the day, guys, it's way better when, price action is really aligning with those things. And I think that when it comes to oil, when it comes to gold, when it comes to all this stuff, those have already really had signs of, potential distributions and accumulations, right? Oil, we dropped in the chat the other day. It looked like it had the potential signs for accumulation starting to happen, right? Gold as well, same thing. So it's kind of interesting actually, because we have everything recorded, right? So everything recorded from before the war started all the way up until today. And the price action has always followed these quote unquote surprise news events so well. So it's not really a coincidence. There's obviously been a lot of market manipulation inside of this conflict that's been happening, which is honestly great for us because we've been able to read things truthfully like a book as they've been happening, right? All right. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and go into the week now. So dollar here, right? What I'm really looking for this week is to see the potential accumulation on dollar continue, right? I think that this pullback here from the distribution is just a pullback, and I think that we are going to see price reaccumulate potentially this week on dollar, right? When we did close, we did have a pretty good zone that ended up printing here, which we can see right here. Right. This push to the downside there that barely swept below this low there, right? This is also what caused the big gold buy up as well, that a lot of people in the group caught. Like after that, we had the reversal that started to come back up. So now we're seeing equal highs here. Now we're seeing equal highs here, right? Now we're seeing gaps up here, right? And now we're seeing gaps up here as well. So just so many targets here in general, for the market to start to come into, right? So I am not going to be surprised at all to see an accumulation this week. I would actually be surprised if we didn't have an accumulation happen this week. Not necessarily meaning that this exact low has to be, the bottom, but I think there's actually a strong chance that this is already the bottom, right? If not, again, like I said initially, like I did want to see these lows here get taken. So like if we could get one more, I mean, that would like one more drive down without like, taking the highs, without taking the gap, without taking these highs. If those things are all still intact and we get another sweep, this is going to be a no-brainer for me personally. Like I'm really going to want to get aggressive on a move like that because I do think that we have some potential to reach up towards new highs, right? I know that we've recently had a distribution on the smaller time frame, but I still think that bigger time frame wise, we're still looking to accumulate, right? We're still in this range here. And now it's just good for us because now we're in the lower half of the range. This is really where we want to start looking for longs again, is when we are, obviously the range between this low and this high. When we're in that lower half of that range, that's when we're going to want to see price accumulate again and give us rallies to the upside so that eventually we can be in the trade when price does decide to break out of the range completely, right? Which I do think is going to be a likely scenario for dollar over the next coming weeks, right? So we'll see how it all plays out. Hopefully this week is the bottom, and we can really take advantage of a nice swing trade, for potential dollar buys. All right. That's personally what I want to see, right? I wouldn't say it's completely confirmed right now or anything, but I would say that it is starting to look pretty clean for this whole thing here to be an accumulation this week, right? So let's go ahead and start off with Euro USD, right? So obviously, as we saw, Euro USD here ended up reaching our liquidity target, right? We see that it did so with a really nice institutional candle, right? On the higher time frame. So we could see this beautiful 4-hour candle that happened right here that pushed us up, right? Up and above the high, right? And then, we obviously can see here, like when we really look at this bigger picture wise, right? We're still in a potential daily distribution in the same way that dollar is in a daily potential accumulation, right? We can see this first drive, this second drive, this third drive, right? We have the low of the distribution, which did not get taken yet. So I do think that this will end up being a target. And basically, again, like my hypothesis since last week has been that, okay, we had a nice accumulation in this low. Now we want to see that when price goes ahead and breaks out towards the highs, that we end up getting a nice distribution, right? So just kind of waiting for that redistribution to see if we can see it play out, right? Truthfully, I would even like to see another high here. Again, like if we get the same scenario as we kind of hoping for with dollar, where we end up sweeping this low here and we do one more low, I think that's going to be the biggest no-brainer to go for a position. And same thing with Euro USD. I think that if we ended up getting above this high, right? Getting above it, right? Getting back into like these areas, right? Potentially swooping some more highs, maybe these ones or something, then we can actually like really be confident in the sell-off, right? But I do think that it could be worth it to take an attempt in here, right? But we'll see how it all goes. Really how price looks like when we get back into this zone with that 4-hour institutional candle. But it is possible that we do still have a UTAD in store, which is personally what I'm hoping for. So fingers crossed for a UTAD on Euro USD. Right. Same thing with GU. I think GU kind of really has the case for a potential UTAD. Again, with the way that we consolidate, come down, we have this big push up that sweeps above. I mean, maybe this is like our UT here, right? Potentially. And then we come up for a UTAD. I mean, that would be like my most clean scenario, right? Would be like basically just looking for what price looks like above this high. And then from there, look to see the sell off back to the downside, right? So pretty excited to see what's going to happen with GU here over the next, like week or so, right? So yeah, EU, GU, I'm really keeping an eye on for this. AU obviously as well, same idea, right? In this case, we're above the distribution. So AU is probably a little bit less, nice for me. NU, I think, can be a good one. We recently had again like a reaccumulation that happened here. So if we get one more reaccumulation and then we end up getting a UTAD, that would be really clean for us to really have a potential schematic. So that's what I personally would like to see, with NU. And then obviously, I mean, one of the best ones to look for longs, I think, is going to be UJ, because obviously UJ is a very bullish, USD pair, right? So maybe we end up getting like more sweeps of more lows, I think would really give us the best chance, to see this go long. But, we'll see how it all goes, over the next couple of days. Again, we kind of do have to see how price action reacts, to the news, obviously, of the Strait of Hormuz being, closed again and everything, with the war being a lot more ongoing than was initially thought on Friday. So we got to see what the reaction looks like. But yeah, that's personally what I'm leaning towards. Again, I do want to see dollar accumulate again, and really go ahead and bring us long, right? We haven't gotten into gold just yet. We're just speaking on currencies for right now. But yeah, that's really that. Again, looking pretty good. With all of the USD pairs, right? USD Chef actually can be a really good position as well. We do have market structure looking pretty good, and we have recently gotten below, some pretty good lows. So maybe this pullback here, we're going to look for whenever this is going to be over, right? I think this, has a good chance of not breaking these lows here, right? So I doubt we break these lows. So if we actually see the market, again, doing a retracement phase and we end up getting the impulsive phase back up into this liquidity, I think USD CHF could be really good for a swing buy position, to go ahead and clear up the highs here at 1.8176, right? So yeah, we'll see how again UChef goes, but I think actually, to be honest, out of everything, I actually think I like UChef the most because we really, again, like I said, having the most pronounced pullback here. Right. And we're still in bullish market structure, right? We're probably just sweeping structural liquidity. And then from there, we'll go ahead and eventually switch over to the longs. That's personally what I'm leaning towards. So we'll see how everything goes with that. So that's currency, guys. All right. Let's tap into metals now. So gold, right? My biggest thing with gold right now is like the highs that we've been creating have not really been giving me a lot of confidence, right? Even last week, I spoke about this high that happened at the end of the week last week. And, again, like it's just one candle to the upside, right? Just like really targeting this high here, and then we just snap right back down, right? Same thing over here, right? When we look at this high, right? It's really the exact same, right? This is the higher high moment here. It's literally just a wick, and then we sell right back off, right? Same thing with gold over here, right? Literally one candle coming up, getting above these levels, right? And then selling right back off. So to me, this like if I want to really look at strength, it's not just about there being higher highs, right? Yes, there's higher highs here, but do these higher highs really speak out strength to us, right? Do they look more like a change in structure, or do they look more like a sweep on liquidity? And for me, the way that these highs are looking, we're not seeing price like really sustaining above highs very well, right? We're literally just seeing the quickest of sweeps, right? Same thing over here, like price is not sustaining very well, right? We literally just see price then come right back down. If we count the weekend price is literally all the way back down already to here at the moment if we count the weekend price, right? So like this entire buy up that we took last week that everybody banked on, right, is now been completely taken back. So this to me is just looking extremely weak, right? And so, I wouldn't mind looking for a retracement to maybe even take gold down for a quick pullback. Maybe even down to like these 4,500 levels and below, could actually be a target for it, right? That's personally what I'm thinking. Again, I think the distribution really starts, like around here or here. So we should be getting below at least 4,600. That's what I think we should be getting below. And it really just comes down to, is this high going to be the one that brings us down? Do we end up getting one more, right? That gives us the move. But honestly, in general, like, again, like I said, like when I see things like this, that's what makes me really get more defensive on, potentially buying it, right? Like we've been speaking about longs since down here, right? Now, when you start to see price get into these new highs and start to, sweep and sweep and sweep like this, that's when we want to get defensive on the buys, take profits on some of the buys. And then from there, maybe even switch over to looking for short positions, for the short term, right? We'll see how it goes with gold, right? But yeah, definitely not looking the strongest, at the moment with the way that the highs are just consistently printing, right? But we'll see how it all goes down. We'll see how it all goes down. But yeah, I think gold is going to be an interesting one to look at. And I would just say be cautious on the buys. That's all I'm going to say about gold, right? Looks like the highs on gold got weaker every time. Exactly, right? That's kind of the same thing that I'm saying there. It does look that way to me as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out next week. We really do see the high spike in volume since around here, right? That's happened. And then again, like prices kind of like again gotten weaker throughout. We did have a big spike here at the top, but that's okay because it looks like it was a major news event, right? Like we speak about, even though the UTAD typically we want to see really, really low volume. In this case, since it was such a big news event with the Strait of Hormuz telling everybody that it was going to be open and blah, 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 like I think that again is the news event that really brought in all that volume. And then from there, I think we're going to potentially just trap all those people in, gap down, and then not really, to be honest, even come back. We'll see how it all goes. But again, I think the volume is also supporting our idea there for the potential for gold to start to maybe have a pullback or just a distribution here in general, right? So that's personally what I'm looking at, guys. Silver. Right, silver over here. Same idea. I would say this looks a little bit stronger than gold does at least. With silver, it's like, I mean, here we're sustaining pretty well above these highs, right? And stuff like that. So like we're seeing a little bit more strength, right? We did have a big impulse up that we're starting to take back. It looks like we did reach above this significant wick right here, right? So maybe that could be a point that we can actually turn around, because we've taken some big wick liquidity, right? We're back inside of like, we can see here, this is the buy to sell motion that really brought us all the way down to here, right? That's right where we're right back into, right? So could this end up being a zone for us to actually sell off from? Maybe that can make sense from market structure and manipulation perspective, with silver, right? So I do think even with silver, it does kind of align, but I will say that it does look a little bit stronger. So maybe even if we do sell off, maybe the pullback doesn't end up being as pronounced, as with, gold, right? And then maybe from there we can look for longs again in some of these deeper areas, and maybe silver could be the better one to look for, just given the fact that again, it has shown a little bit more strength in comparison to gold. So yeah, only time will tell. Yeah, only time will tell. But that's the ideas there with metals. All right, we're going to move into indices. So indices now massive rallies, massive, massive rallies. Really, really clean price action here with, US 30, right? I forgot to speak about this there too, but we did speak about, the potential for these lows here to get taken, to get back into this gap. I mean, not oil, US 30 did end up, tapping into it, but again, nothing too crazy, right? It literally just taps in, retraces, and then continues to go higher. So yeah, I mean, like, pretty good for longs this week. To be honest, there was a lot of great opportunities here. In terms of now, I mean, obviously the weekend price is already kind of slipping back down, right? It does still look really bullish though. I can't lie. I would say that there's a lot more evidence that the buys are happening versus the sells, but maybe that all changes this week, where this week maybe we get a little bit more distribution evidence than we did last week. But as of right now, there's nothing here that's screaming distribution to me. Until we really start to see the markets start to trade back down and really give us some more bearish market structure. At the moment, it's just bullish. So I would still be careful with shorts, until we really start to get, things going. I probably wouldn't choose indices to do so. To be honest, with price being at such a high level, on things like S&P, like the S&P now is at 7,000, right? First time ever, that we're hitting 7,000, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, actually, I guess we did hit 7,000 over here. Yeah, just barely. But yeah, like, breaking through 7,000 for the first time. And then from there, like, from here, it's like, what happens now, right? We can either try to buy at all-time highs, right? Or we can wait for pullbacks. We can wait for things to crash down, which it most likely will. And then from there, we make our decisions, right? If we see bearish structure, then maybe we can start to play bearish structure type of plays. At the moment, I'm not shorting. I'm not buying. I think this week is something for me to really just stay away from indices and look into some of these other pairs. I think it's time to get back into currency and stuff. I haven't been looking at currency too much. So I think that's going to be probably the focus, for this week, and as well as gold, right? And silver. So we'll see how those go there, for the indices, right? And then finally we have crypto, right? So I did see somebody asking about crypto here, so I'm going to read your question. What do you think about BTC longs? I'm in at 74,700. All right, 74,700. So you're in a little bit of profit right now. All right, let's take a look at what's going on. Currently at the moment, we have this high that previously we were kind of worried about to be like a potential like high atop in the market. We did see the market get above there now, which is great. but we didn't, again, do so in the strongest way, right? It really just kind of had like a big buy up here, right? And honestly, kind of engulfed down very quickly, right? Recently, within this high right here, right? We have again seen, the market like pull back, but do so with a really fast move to the upside, right? Getting above previous points of liquidity here, right? As we can see here, this is really like what the market targeted, right? Big push to the upside there, right? Started to distribute and come down. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of longing right now. I do think that there is like potential for this to be like a reaccumulation, right? Because we do see a distribution here, right? That distribution turns into an accumulation right there, right? So it could be the case that this is where we react from, but I just don't really like whenever I look like and I'm like, okay, I want to buy from this level, for example, just like you're saying, right? You're like, I want to buy from around here. Even if you want to buy from around here, right, we have to look at what happens in the highs, right? What's the context, right? And the question I always ask myself is, what are the odds of the market, really, this being a potential top in the market, right? And honestly, with the way that it did it all, I mean, I think you can give it a decent probability for this to even be a top, for a little while, right? Personally, for me, if I wanted to see a buy again, I would probably look even lower, right? Down in here, where we previously reaccumulated last week. That's personally what I would want to tap into, or just deeper, a little bit deeper, maybe after we get some candle closures. But yeah, normally, that's what I would do. I don't know if you're trying to buy off of this level, but this is just an internal low. I low-key think that this can get swept. Even if we are going to go long, I think we probably will sweep that, get more deeper into this, extreme low, and then from there go long. So that's kind of my potential, my idea there on BTC. Again, I don't really like the highs here. I don't like the way that we pushed above those highs. I saw that ETH had the same kind of candles as well, right? We could see ETH with that one candle up, right? Before then coming down. These are the ones I typically want to stay away from for longs. So yeah, context wise, not really looking the best, for longs at the moment. That's just my opinion. If you like it, you continue to run it up. But yeah, with BTC, truthfully, I'd like to see a bigger pullback because we've seen that, right? Most likely below here we'll end up getting, and then we'll probably use that as liquidity eventually, to then maybe get the next long from these levels over here, right? So we'll see how that goes, right? Only time will tell there as well with BTC, right? Now, finally, I'm going to go into oil, right? I have to start adding oil into these analysis, right? So like I said, I do think that, this oil has been showing, the signs of potential accumulation. I think we're starting to get price, to come down into really extreme areas here, right? I personally don't think that we'll break this order flow here, especially after the news. So I do think 76.86 is going to be the bottom. And, now according to the weekend prices, we've already completely taken back this push to the downside that happened right here, right? So that push to the downside that happened there, we're already like all the way up here. We'll probably gap up and then hopefully from there fill that gap and maybe use that to go ahead and go long, right? I think that could actually be a pretty good opportunity for us to look for the longs again, but only time will tell about how this all goes, right? But yeah, honestly, again, like with oil, I do think that the buys do continue to make sense. I don't really think like really the only danger here is that we break order flow and head towards this imbalance that's here at around $70. But I just think from a fundamental perspective, there's really no reason to see, price head down to there, right? Especially now with the like when the whole Strait of Hormuz thing happened and they closed it, like in the back of my head, I was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe this is the reason that we come down towards that 70 imbalance. But I just think now, like, especially with it now being open again, sorry, with it being closed again, I actually think that, to be honest, I don't think that this order flow is going to break. I think this previous zone here that we saw manipulation, we can see like this fast push to the downside. That's our manipulation move. I think we respect this low. I think we just had a manipulation last week. And then, like I said, now maybe we can see a pullback mitigation to go ahead and give us a long to reach towards these equal highs up here. So I do think oil heading towards 120 a barrel could be happening, right? I don't think it's going to happen super quick. That's more of a position trade, right? More of like a real long swing position. But I do think that there is some big potential in that. So probably something that I'm going to be looking for when the market opens again today. So we'll see how it all goes. All right. But yeah, that's really everything that I wanted to look at. Let me see what you guys want to look at. So Matt wants us to look at GBP NZD. Does it look like a reaccumulation on the higher time frame? So let's look at it. So it's GBP NZD, I believe you said. Right, so you said, yeah, GBP NZD. Okay, so on the higher time frame here, let's see what we got. So overall, this is pretty bullish here when we look at the daily. We definitely had a recent distribution here, right? That looks like a distribution to me. We came down, we got back into the previous lows, and we accumulated again. And granted, yeah, this is pretty good accumulation here. I remember I was looking at this actually. And then, we got below the low, we did reaccumulate, right? We did get back into order flow, which is just like this zone here, right? And then we ended up seeing the market just slowly now start to grind its way higher. Yeah, with GNZD here, I think that could be the incentive. It could be that. Again, recently we got back into that distribution, the higher time frame one, and it does look like we almost had another one in a way, in that high. In terms of maybe like, this being a reaccumulation, I'm not too convinced on that front yet. It does kind of look like there's like a little bit of a liquidity buildup here, right? Maybe we do end up getting one more spring down, right? And then we end up going long again. But yeah, I wouldn't mind looking for longs on this in a new low, to be honest. But I think we're still in the process of accumulating. I think we still need to have that spring. That's personally what I'm looking at. So, I think that for me, if I were to look at this, I'd probably want to see one more drive down at least. Get that on lower volume, and then from there, go ahead and look for the longs, right? One thing I do like about your idea, though, is that there is some really good liquidity buildup that's over here, right? So probably that will end up being taken as well, right? So if we go to the downside, we'll probably go straight to the next point of liquidity that's over there to the upside. So we'll see how this ends up going, but not looking too shabby, not looking too shabby. But yeah, guys, that is it for Wyckoff Sundays episode 13. All right, next week, we're going to be tapping back into everything again. So I'll see you guys on there if you guys are on the recording, right? Remember, right, go ahead and join up in our Discord, right? Get tapped in with the community. All right, we got a lot of snipers there that are waiting to teach you some good stuff. All right. So yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, much love, much appreciation. Peace out.